homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please give rise to the Supreme Bodhicitta. Now we will continue to discuss the methods for maintaining awareness. Among observing the state of our three doors, we have finished explaining the first, observing the actions of the body. Now we are discussing guarding our awareness by observing the movements of the mind. The verse says, "With all my efforts, I must check that the crazed elephant of mind has not slipped loose from being tied to the great post of thoughts of Dharma." This means that for those of us who are upholding bodhicitta and maintaining awareness and mindfulness, we should wholeheartedly and diligently examine our state of mind. We must always observe our own mind. Sometimes the mind is like a wild monkey. Sometimes it is like a crazed elephant. We have already explained how terrifying a crazed elephant can be. So such a mind must be firmly tied to the post of practicing bodhicitta and remembering virtue. We should frequently use awareness to check whether this mind has slipped away or not, or it is focused on bodhicitta, renunciation, or our practice. If our minds have already left the post of Dharma, then it will definitely bring immense suffering and harm to ourselves and others. So using awareness to observe the mind is extremely important. Why do I say that? We already know that indeed, if we do not practice and the mind is not properly tamed, it will bring great harm, both in this life and in future lives. But if we do practice, the mind can be tamed. For example, in the past, there were people who served under the king, specializing in taming wild elephants. They would use iron hooks, ropes, and various training methods to train elephants. Through this kind of training, even a crazed elephant could eventually become quite obedient. It would be extremely gentle and pliant. But we should know that for those who tame elephants, they can only tame their bodies, not their minds. In the stories from the time of the Buddha, there is a story like this. There was a king who had many wild elephants. He specifically assigned people to tame these elephants. One time the king was preparing to go into the forest. He wanted to ride an elephant, so he asked, "Please find me an elephant that is completely well trained and ready for me." So his attendant prepared such an elephant for the king. The king then rode the elephant into the forest to hunt. When they reached the middle of the forest, the elephant caught the scent of a female elephant. At that moment, it started chasing after the female elephant as if it had gone wild. Since the king was riding on its back, he became extremely frightened and anxious, but there was nothing he could do. In the end, he managed to grab onto a tree in the forest just in time and barely escaped. He was very angry. When he returned, he wanted to hold the elephant trainer accountable. But the trainer said, "Trajan, Your Majesty, I am truly sorry. This elephant's body has indeed been tamed, but its mind wasn't, and that's why what happened today occurred." The king asked, "Why didn't you tame its mind as well?" The trainer replied, "I am truly sorry, but I am powerless in this regard. The only one who has the ability to tame the minds of sentient beings is the Buddha, the great compassionate one. As for the rest of us, we can only train and tame the body. Indeed, the body of this elephant has already been tamed. If you don't believe me, we can test it." After the elephant returned, they had it pick up a burning iron ball with its trunk. Even though the burning iron ball could burn its body, the elephant was still very obedient. When it was told to bring it up, the king could clearly see that taming the body is something ordinary people can do, but not the mind. Nowadays, many people train their bodies through exercise and sports. Our bodies can take on all sorts of poses. For example, in acrobatic troupes, or among some athletes in sports arenas, what we see on the surface is truly astonishing. But in fact, after a certain amount of training, the body becomes flexible. This is achievable. Whether it is the human body or some other animals, such as dolphins in parks today, after some training, their bodies can also become gentle and pliant. But for our minds to become pliant, we must rely on the teachings of the Buddha. Without the Buddha's teachings, it is impossible for ordinary people to tame others' minds. This is something that simply cannot be done. Here, we use the analogy of the crazed elephant to illustrate this. Indeed, a crazed elephant is extremely dangerous if it is not tamed. But if it is tamed, then its body can be used in any way people wish. In India, some elephants that have been tamed can use their bodies like a loader or for any other purpose. For example, when we want to ride an elephant because the elephant is so tall, we can ask it to kneel so we can get on. Then it obediently kneels. After we get on, we ask it to stand up. Nowadays in zoos, we can see elephants can perform all kinds of tricks, even dance. They are trained to do all sorts of movements. So we can see that after being tamed, these animals become truly obedient and their bodies become very responsive and well behaved. The same goes for our mind. It can be truly terrifying if it hasn't been tamed through practice. For example, once intense afflictions arise, such as desire or anger or arrogance, often without even being aware of it, we may act just like someone who's lost their mind. If we look at some of the major cases in society today, for example, certain officials who have embezzled millions or even tens of millions, when hearing about these things, we often feel that they are kind of insatiable. What's the point of embezzling so much money? In a short lifetime, you could never spend it all. Isn't this just like being completely irrational? Or when some people are overcome by anger, the things they do are really no different from madness. Just the other day, I heard about two people in a nearby county eating at a small restaurant. Apparently, they didn't pay, and the owner tried to stop them. They insisted on leaving and tried to get away. When the owner blocked their car, they ran him over and killed him. They refused to pay and even killed the owner over a simple meal. We feel these people must be out of their minds. They were totally under the control of their afflictions, just like a crazed elephant, utterly wild and violent. If the mind is not tamed, it can become so out of control that it can drive people to do all kinds of harmful things. In the end, they may have realized what they've done, but by then it's already been too late. Situations like this are actually quite common. That's why we should always observe our minds. We should use the rope of mindfulness to tie our minds to the post of remembering virtue. As practitioners, this is something we should always do. Of course, at first there can be all kinds of difficulties. Sometimes we feel that our minds just won't settle down. But as long as we keep training our minds in this way, we will make progress and see benefits. Otherwise, on the surface, we may appear to be practicing the Dharma physically, listening to teachings, or even going on retreat. But our wandering minds can be completely out of control. Even if some people live in a retreat hut, if their minds are untamed and the three poisons thoughts arise constantly, they'll feel confined in this little hut, as agonizing as being in prison. They end up counting the days. They may have made a vow for doing retreat for 100 days, but end up counting down the days and feeling extremely miserable. On the contrary, if you have mastered your own mind, or as long as you can observe your mind constantly at any time and in all situations, then no matter where you live or who you interact with, you will always feel truly happy. So practitioners who follow the Dharma should be different from ordinary people. First, this difference lies in how we observe our minds, and the second, in our actions. Observing the mind and our actions is closely related. In daily life, whether walking or eating, whatever we do, our actions should be in accordance with the Dharma. At the same time, we should keep mindfulness and awareness. Lord Atisha said, awareness is like a rope, and the mind is like a crazed elephant. This mind should be tied with the rope of awareness to the post of remembering virtue. So, at all times, whether morning or night, we should always observe our minds and make sure they are gentle and pliant. Throughout the day, in everything we do, we should strive to nurture virtue and loving kindness and reduce the negative thoughts in our minds. In this way, even troubling habitual tendencies will gradually disappear. As genuine Dharma followers, especially the Mahayana practitioners, we must never ever act recklessly and harm sentient beings. This is the most serious fault. So it is extremely important to constantly observe our minds. Now, we talk about how observing the mind is in fact inseparable from meditative concentration. Exerting myself in samadhi, I shall examine my own mind by thinking, what is my mind doing, to not lose it for even a moment. This verse means that we should constantly observe our minds. We should diligently and wholeheartedly practice single-pointed concentration. Single-pointed concentration means the mind is focused on one point. From the perspective of emptiness, the state that the mind cannot be grasped is also called single-pointed concentration. The sutra says, if the mind cannot be found, that is called one-pointedness. This means that if we come to realize that the mind cannot be found in the future, the past, or the present, that is what is called single-pointed concentration at a more advanced level. If we can truly abide in such a state, then our minds will not be distracted at all. It won't be scattered by external sense objects, forms, sounds, smells, or tastes, not even a little bit. Of course, for ordinary people, it is unrealistic to expect our minds to be undistracted, even for a moment, 24 hours a day. Generally, this is not something we can achieve, but we should still strive to maintain mindfulness, guarding the mind, observing the mind, and abiding in our objects of focus. The objects of focus here don't have to be complex or profound visualizations, nor do we need to sit with closed eyes or in the 7-point Vairochana posture, as taught in Vajrayana or Chan. It can be explained this way, but it is not limited to this. In all activities, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down, always remembering virtue, this is also a kind of meditative concentration and a form of practice. In the past, some great masters of the Chan school also believed that, apart from Chan, there is no true pure land. And beyond pure land, there is no such thing as Chan. Master Fengzhao and other Chan masters also shared similar teachings. So, we shall always examine our own mind. What is my mind doing, so as not to lose it even for a moment? That is to say, we should keep observing our minds. What is my mind thinking? What is it doing right now? Whether practicing Chan, studying, or reciting the Buddha's name, keeping observation in this way is itself a supreme practice. The Avatamsaka Sutra also says, if you can recite the Buddha's name without distraction, you will see countless Buddhas. This means that if we are constantly reciting the Buddha's name, there are two ways to recite. One is to recollect with the mind, and the other is to recite aloud. If we can constantly recollect the Buddha and recite the Buddha's name, then we already have the conditions to see countless Buddhas. Such merit and opportunity are truly hard to obtain, even in millions of eons. Some people think, I am just learning a little pure land practice, reciting Amitabha's name with some monks. It seems like nothing special. But we must not think this way. In fact, this opportunity is extremely rare. Some young people think, I won't join the elders in reciting. They think it's just for the elderly. But actually, Amitabha's name is just like a wish-fulfilling jewel of immense value. Whoever holds it, young or old, is truly blessed. I have seen only a few young people recite Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha. This is not reasonable. When elderly people recite Amitabha's name, people think, oh, they're old now, of course they should recite. But actually, it is not only the elderly who should recite Amitabha's name. Death can come at any time. The merit and blessings of reciting Amitabha's name are so great that why wouldn't we practice it? Our minds are flooded with all kinds of discursive thoughts that we can't overcome. In such a degenerate age, Amitabha's name shines brightly with incomparable blessing power, so why wouldn't we recite it? I think there is no reason for young people not to recite Amitabha's name. As for retreat or meditation, His Holiness used to emphasize that generally, for young people, if you have the opportunity, you should first focus on listening and reflecting and learn more deeply about Buddhist teachings. Most people nowadays lack basic Buddhist knowledge and have not built a solid foundation at all. So young practitioners should try every possible way to follow the great masters of the past. Rely more on authentic spiritual teachers and listen to the essential teachings that will benefit your future practice. Once you have extensively learned, practicing Dharma, reciting scriptures, and performing ritual practices will become much easier. After some study and contemplation from a person's words and actions, we can see their level of understanding of Buddhism. With a certain level of Buddhist knowledge, they will not go astray, nor fall into mistaken or wrong paths. Therefore, I sincerely hope that you will do your best to meet the requirements of a true practitioner. Of course, we can practice according to the methods explained in the Chan school. As a meditator, at every moment one should observe one's mind. Where is my mind focused? Or we can simply observe our minds. For example, as Kalyanadeva of India said, whatever we do, we should observe our minds. If our minds give rise to thoughts of virtue, we should rejoice and let them increase. If neutral thoughts arise, we should try our best to transform them into virtue. If our minds are caught in unwholesome or evil thoughts, then we should do our utmost to cut off this flow of negative thoughts and let the mind give rise to thoughts of virtue. So whether someone is practicing well or not is not necessarily determined by their position or status, nor by what is written on their business card, or whether they are the abbot of many monasteries. These things don't really matter. Overseeing 100 monasteries won't necessarily help you make progress in your practice. If you often meditate and your practice is quite good, even if you have no monastery or followers, even if you are a beggar on the roadside, you are still truly a genuine practitioner. So reputation, status, or the respect from others does not necessarily mean someone is a great master. In ancient times, there was a saying, a famous monk is not necessarily great, and a great monk is not necessarily famous. It means that fame is not an indicator of spiritual practice. A true practitioner is not necessarily a famous monk, and a famous monk is not necessarily a true practitioner. Omniscient Longchenpa also said in the Great Chariot, the commentary on resting in the nature of mind, that even if one has as many followers as maggots, it doesn't mean one is a qualified spiritual teacher. So sometimes people say, this Lama must be amazing, so many people admire him. He has so many disciples in both the East and the West. He must be extraordinary. But that's not necessarily the case. Everyone has their own charisma or a certain personal appeal. These days, many celebrities and pop stars have a huge number of fans and followers. But in terms of spiritual realization, have they eliminated the three poisons? Most likely not. This can be seen through how things unfold for those well-known figures at the time of death. So this is not to say that we are looking down on or criticizing those masters with numerous followers. But in fact, when it comes to spiritual practice, we should look at things with a balanced and discerning attitude. If someone truly has bodhicitta and a content mind with few desires, then they are truly accomplished practitioners, even if they are of humble status and low caste. On the contrary, if a person lacks even compassion or bodhicitta for all sentient beings, always holds themselves in high regard, and thinks they are extraordinary, possessing nothing but arrogance and no other qualities at all, then whether they are a layperson or a monastic, they cannot be considered qualified practitioners. This is the standard set by the Buddha himself, so it is not that we bear a grudge or intend to slander anyone. But some Buddhists today lack the wisdom to make careful distinctions. They regard someone as a great master or an accomplished one with reasons that are not necessarily valid, if seen according to Buddhist logic. If someone truly has the qualities of abandonment and realization, like the authentic spiritual teachers of the past, then we have every reason to rely on, respect, and venerate them. We should definitely rely on and make offerings to these masters. I really admire the practitioners of the past. Whatever they did, whether walking or eating, wherever they were, in the city or in the remote mountains, they always kept observing their own mind. What am I doing? Am I acting properly as a practitioner? Day or night, they were always reflecting on themselves. Yet, for us modern practitioners, do we have such mindfulness? It's hard to say. The other day, a Buddhist said to me, it seems this person is not a good practitioner. He spends every day doing this and that. So sometimes one can tell who a true practitioner is simply from their words and actions. So genuine practitioners who meditate and observe the mind can be recognized from their outward demeanor. Of course, some may pretend to have dignified conduct, but apart from that, generally speaking, especially if you interact with someone over a long period, you should be able to see some of their inner qualities. Next, we will discuss the third point, which is about the time when relaxation is permitted. In the verse it says, if due to danger, feast and such, you cannot do what's easiest. It's taught that in a time of giving, you may ignore some discipline. Previously, it has been repeatedly emphasized that we should always maintain awareness and engage in proper conduct. When standing still, we should be as steady as a large tree by the roadside. When walking, we should only look at the road a yoke's length ahead. So there are strict standards for our conduct, but the compassionate Buddha permits that when our minds are truly weak or under certain special circumstances, it's okay to ignore some discipline. Nowadays, some people think Buddhism has overly strict rules and regulations. They feel it lacks any flexibility, that everything is judged in a rigid, dogmatic way, and that even a minor mistake counts as a breach of precepts. This view is actually incorrect. Of course, truly negative actions that create unwholesome karma are never permitted in Buddhism. For example, if one's mind gives rise to desire, anger, or wrong view, or if someone breaks root vows, such acts are not permitted in either Vajrayana or Sutrayana, whether in Tibetan Buddhism or Han Buddhism. But some people think that Tibetan Buddhism allows killing, whereas Han Buddhism does not. This is an unreasonable view. Based on my understanding of Han Buddhism and a long-term study of Tibetan Buddhism, there is no difference in their essential meaning. All the precepts that are prohibited in Han Buddhism are equally prohibited in Tibetan Buddhism, whether Sutrayana or Vajrayana. And the precepts that are allowed and not allowed in Tibetan Buddhism are treated equally in authentic Han Buddhism. So here it means that the Buddha, with great compassion, also allowed us to ignore discipline under special circumstances. For example, if we encounter life-threatening danger when facing natural disasters, wild animals, evil people, or bandits at the moment of life and death, the Buddha did not require us to always behave in a strictly proper way. For example, if an enemy appears or a house catches fire, it's unreasonable to just sit there meditating without moving. Or if a flood or earthquake occurs at that time, it won't be reasonable to still walk slowly with a solemn, composed gait, eyes straight ahead during such an emergency. If your house is on fire or you run into a crisis, although the Vinaya does not permit shouting, yelling, or running at normal times, you can do so under special situations like that. Another situation is for making offerings to the three jewels, holding Buddhist feasts, or celebrating Buddhist festivals such as Vesak or the Buddha's birthday. Or the festival of the Buddha's first turning of the wheel of Dharma. At those times, there are also special permissions. Originally, the Vinaya did not allow things like singing or dancing, but you can do so in these cases. For example, in Han Buddhism today, sometimes there are Buddhist cultural performances or large-scale Buddhist music concerts. At such music concerts, sometimes great masters are present, with rows of bhikshunis on one side and bhikshus on the other. I have also seen some overseas Han Buddhist communities hold large-scale gatherings, some even at the national or international level, and sing the Song of the Three Jewels together. Some people may wonder, is it appropriate for monastics to sing songs? But in fact, this is permitted by the Buddha, and the same applies to Tibetan Buddhism. When His Holiness was alive, every year at our academy in the summer, everyone would gather on the grass and do chok offering together, singing Vajra songs and performing Vajra dance and so on. Actually, there is a special need to hold this kind of Vajra celebration every year. At such times, exceptions are allowed. Here, there is a slight difference between the Tibetan verse and its Chinese translation. The Chinese version is, if the mind is scattered, it should be at ease. The Tibetan literally means, if you cannot, do what's easiest. If the mind really cannot focus, sometimes it is permitted to let the mind relax a little, as long as you do not violate the major precepts. For special needs, such as Dharma propagation or activities benefiting sentient beings, you may set aside minor precepts of body, speech, and mind, such as engaging in singing and dancing. For example, it is recorded in the sutras that Manjushri would often go to the palace of King Ajatashatru and sing and dance together with the royal consorts. On the surface, these actions seemed very improper since Manjushri appeared in monastic form. But in fact, through such skillful means, he benefited and liberated many beings at that time. So, from this aspect, such actions are permissible when necessary. Sometimes we may wonder, is it improper for lamas to be interested in Buddhist songs or dramas? It seems that such things should not attract their interest. Some people, myself included, did have such thoughts. How can monastics with shaven heads sing like that? How undignified. Honestly, I once had such thoughts, but this only shows I did not understand the Buddha's true intention. As long as it benefits sentient beings, hair or no hair does not matter. If their singing is beautiful, it can benefit sentient beings. We should look at the bigger picture and consider the overall benefit. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is the Lotus Gardens play, composed by Patrul Rinpoche. This play is a love story between two bees and contains many poetic and dramatic performances. Mifam Rinpoche once composed some Vajra songs. His Holiness also arranged the dance of the 8 auspicious ones. Of course, their content and meaning are completely different from worldly songs and dances. If a wise person looks at them, they will see the difference. But for those who lack wisdom, they may just see it as ordinary singing and dancing. In Han Buddhism, great masters have also written many lyrics. For example, Master Taishu wrote the lyrics and Master Hongyi composed the music for the Song of the Three Jewels, and Master Hanshan composed the Song for Awakening the World. And I have seen that in Han Buddhism today, they often organize various activities to bring many people into the great community of Buddhism. This is their goal. The other day, I met a great master in the south. He said that now the monastery takes the initiative to organize a Buddhist music group and a Buddhist song and dance troupe. Every month they perform for the public. At such times, many people would take refuge in Buddhism. Indeed, when great masters give teachings, many people may not show up. Yet if we say, today we have singing and dancing here, when this is announced, crowds of people may readily come. Maybe this is because these activities cater to their habitual preferences. So we should not have wrong views, but should recognize these as the skillful means of great masters. Nowadays, most people are relatively open-minded, but some are very conservative and can only accept their own way. For example, for the meditator who dwells in a remote mountain, they may think that meditation alone is the best. For any other methods of spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings, they do not accept or appreciate. I think this attitude is not very reasonable. There are many ways to benefit beings. His Holiness once told us a story that when a master transferred the consciousness of a dead person, he did so not through fawa, but through singing. In the past, at Khenpo Monastery, there was a master named Jamyang Jepa. Once he went to a place to perform a liberation ritual for 2 young girls who had died suddenly, and he tried to liberate their souls. At first, he tried his best to liberate them by using various Vajrayana rituals, but from his expression, it seemed that it was not successful. Then he entered meditative concentration for a while, and after that, he began to sing love songs from the Tibetan regions. It is said that this master had a particularly beautiful voice. He just sang loudly. Then many of his disciples could not accept this. Our guru should be reciting the liberation ritual for the dead, not singing. But there he was, singing loudly. Among Tibetans, there is a custom that when someone dies, one must never joke, laugh, sing, or dance at that time. It is not allowed. If you do, you might even face a lawsuit. People would say, "Why are you so happy when we are suffering the most?" So when someone in the family dies, no one around dares to sing loudly. It is our custom. But in this story, after singing some love songs, the master stopped. And then he started reciting the dedication prayer. Later, his disciples boldly asked the master, "Why did you do such an unusual thing today?" The master replied, "Sentient beings are truly pitiful. These 2 girls were once very famous singers. They loved singing, so I used this method to attract them. Their consciousnesses in the bardo were wandering everywhere, and they paid no attention to me. So I sang those love songs to draw their attention. Hearing my singing, they seemed to notice me. Through this method, I summoned their consciousnesses, and only then was I able to liberate them." So we can see that for some truly accomplished masters, whatever they do, whether singing or dancing, is solely for benefiting beings. Such conduct is normally not allowed for those holding pratimoksha vows, such as bhikshus or novices, but for these masters it does not become an obstacle. Instead, it is a means for benefiting beings. But for those who have not reached this level, it is definitely not okay to indulge in singing and dancing. Such behavior is not permitted by any Buddhist scripture. Only in special circumstances are exceptions allowed. For example, when comparing the merit of giving to the merit of upholding discipline, the merit of keeping precepts for one day is far greater than the merit of 100 years of giving, because the higher the paramita among the 6 paramitas, the greater its merit. Comparing giving and upholding discipline, the merit of discipline is greater. Comparing discipline and patience, the merit of patience is greater. But even so, it is not always fixed. There is exceptions. For example, in certain special situations, if you break some precepts for giving, this is also allowed. The Buddha permitted this in the sutras. In the teaching of Akshayamati, it is said, when giving, it is permitted to temporarily set aside some precepts. That is to say, when certain acts of giving yield great merit, it is permissible to temporarily set aside minor precepts on such occasions. For example, as said in Bodhicharyavatara, ocean of good explanations, when sentient beings about to be killed run away. Even if you see them, when the killers ask you, you can lie to them. The Buddha also said this in the Vinaya. For example, if a hunter is hunting and there are some wild animals fleeing from him, you see them clearly, and then the hunter asks you, did you see the wild animals I was chasing? At that time you can say, did you see the sky? Yes, I saw the sky. Did you see your finger? Yes, I saw my finger. Well, ultimately speaking, I did not see them. And you can answer this way. This is considered an expedient lie. For example, there was a monk who studied here. When his family found out, they came to the academy to take him back, insisting that he must return to lay life. At that time, some of our fellow students replied, I have never seen this man or heard of him. They even described someone else to their parents and told a lie to deceive them. As a general rule, it is improper for a Buddhist to tell lies. Yet when there is a genuine necessity, such deception is deemed justifiable. Yet there are some lay people who casually use the excuse that the Buddha permits telling lies sometimes, and then deceive others every day for their business. This is absolutely impermissible. If you deceive others just to make money, this is neither an act of giving, nor does it yield any merit. Such lies are not permitted. But if you truly, among all types of giving, the giving of fearlessness is the greatest, so the merit of releasing captive lives is immense. For the sake of saving lives, some minor precepts are permitted to be set aside. For example, your robe is not properly worn, or if you hurry along with a run, or your behavior is not entirely in accordance with the Dharma, yet you do so for saving lives, so it's permissible. There was once someone who said, I want to participate in life release activities and attend teachings, but my family won't allow it. But if I say I want to go to a dance hall or go out to have fun with friends, my parents are happy and they not only agree, but also give me money. But if I say I want to do life release, they won't allow it. So I often trick my parents and use the money for life release instead. In fact, I never actually go to those entertainment places. Actually, we can do this too. For the sake of saving lives, sometimes we trick our parents, or even taking a little money from them is acceptable. Well, am I in this teaching on the Bodhicharyavatara telling everyone to do bad things? Maybe after this class, some will immediately look for their parents' wallets and take some money from them. Anyway, for the sake of saving sentient beings' lives, there are times when even acts such as stealing, lying, or using divisive speech are permissible. So in Buddhism, there are exceptions in terms of observing discipline. Next, it says, once you've considered and begun a task, now we discuss that whatever we do, we must make a firm commitment and carry it out step by step. Once you've considered and begun a task, don't think of anything else. Focusing your attention there, you should accomplish that one first. If you do this, all is done well. Otherwise, neither will get done. In this way, you will not increase the near affliction non-awareness. This means that whatever we do, we should first think carefully and have a thorough plan. We should reflect repeatedly. What will be the consequences? Will I encounter any obstacles along the way? What problems might I face at the beginning? And will doing this benefit myself and others? We should think matters through carefully at the outset. As people often say, it's better to speak frankly from the start. Say more of the difficult things first. So if we think more in advance, we can consider things more thoroughly from many angles. if we have thought it over, if we have decided to do something, once we have made the decision, we should stop thinking about doing other things. Khenpo Kunpal also says in his commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara, for example, before you study the Bodhicharyavatara, first you should consider whether you will be able to finish this text and whether it will benefit yourself and others. Think it over carefully first. Once you have decided, start your study. After you have started, don't change your mind and give up halfway. In the middle, maybe you feel it's too easy, so you want to give up. Or maybe you find it very difficult and want to try something else. Neither attitude is sensible. It is not easy for you to make the decision. Once you make this aspiration, don't change it halfway. You must finish this first before moving on to other texts. This is the behavior of a wise person, but many people nowadays are not like this. Today, they follow this teacher. Tomorrow, another teacher. Today, they try this practice. Tomorrow, they try that. They are constantly switching and changing, and in the end, accomplish nothing at all, leaving themselves filled with disappointment. So after thinking it through, stop thinking about other things. You must wholeheartedly focus and concentrate on this one thing. If you stick to completing this one thing first and nothing else, you will definitely accomplish it. For example, some people are studying the Bodhicharyavatara, but halfway through they stop their learning when running into a little setback. They then seek more advanced practices such as Mahamudra or Dzogchen, but no matter how much they seek, they are unable to practice it, so they cannot benefit others either. So you should proceed step by step according to your own ability and state of mind. Of course, if your capacity is sharp, you can study 3 or 4 courses at the same time without any difficulty. This is not discouraged, it is fine, but it depends on whether you can really handle it. Generally, I advise you to focus on one main course. Don't just dabble in this and that. In the end, you accomplish nothing. There is a saying in the world, when you are walking, you really wish to quickly reach the top of the mountain. It doesn't seem fast enough by lifting one foot at a time. You think it'll be faster if you lift both feet at once. But if you lift both feet at once, you will easily fall. In the end, you really will fall and get hurt. Some people are really impatient. Now I am already over 40 or 50 years old. I have finally encountered the Dharma. Now I have become a monastic. What a rare opportunity. I want to study the 5 great treatises and the 5 treatises of Maitreya at the same time. I want to practice both. Sutrayana and Vajrayana, and all 5 preliminaries at once. Today I will practice refuge, generate bodhicitta, do prostrations and mandala offerings all at the same time. But it simply cannot be done. Whatever we do, we should focus on one thing first. Some people do volunteer work here and there, but end up not accomplishing much in any area. There is a key point. In the Just King Treasury of Good Advice and many other treatises, it is required that we act according to our own capacity and always proceed step by step. You should choose to do the most important thing in your life. When doing this, it's best not to retreat, no matter what adversity you encounter. In this way, everything is easily accomplished. Otherwise, nothing will be accomplished. If you leave one thing unfinished and try to do another, neither will succeed. Nagarjuna wrote a text called The Tree of Wisdom. In this text, there is a story that illustrates this issue. The story was about a beautiful lady who encountered some robbers while traveling to another place. As a result, all her possessions were stolen, and even the clothes on her body were stripped away. After that, the woman felt extremely embarrassed. Because she was naked, she didn't dare go anywhere else. In the wilderness, she only had a leaf to cover her private parts, so she just sat there and didn't dare to come out. At that moment, a fox came to the lakeside. The fox had a piece of meat in its mouth. It looked around by the lake. There were many fish swimming in the lake. So the fox put the piece of meat on the shore. Then it started to chase the fish in the lake. But as soon as it went in, all the fish swam to the bottom of the lake, and it caught nothing. When it came back, a crow arrived and took that piece of meat, flying away with it. At that moment, the naked woman was just sitting there and saw this. She kept laughing at the fox. As she laughed, the fox became a bit angry and said to her, "What are you looking at and laughing about?" the fox asked quite unhappily. The woman replied, "I am looking at you. The meat in your mouth has flown into the sky, and the fish you were after have gone to the bottom of the lake." At that time, the fox sang her a song, but I won't go into the lyrics here. The point of the story is This fox originally had a piece of meat and wanted to get the fish as well, so it hoped to get both at once, but in the end it got neither. Both the meat and the fish were gone. Similarly, when memorizing texts, some Dharma friends originally intend to memorize 3 treatises, but they memorize a bit of each here and there, and in the end don't fully memorize even one. So we should focus on one thing at a time. For example, if you are studying 3 treatises, it's best to focus on one. That way you will achieve something. Otherwise, it is not very meaningful. This is also a key point in how we do things. The near affliction non-awareness here refers to the 20 types of latent tendencies, not the 6 root afflictions. It is the non-awareness that is associated with ignorance. Non-awareness is the opposite of awareness. It means not being able to observe the 3 doors. Such non-awareness will not increase. What does this mean? If we have carefully considered and begun a task step by step, then the near affliction non-awareness will not increase in our mind streams. All afflictions will be pacified. This verse also has another way to be explained. I have already analyzed this in my previous commentary, and you can read it for yourself. According to different Sanskrit versions, this verse can also be, in this way, you will increase the near affliction non-awareness. It means if we do not proceed step by step, then not only we cannot accomplish the things we do, our near affliction non-awareness will also increase as a result. This way of explaining it is also acceptable. But according to Tokme Zangpo's explanation, here it is, you will not increase. Explaining it from the perspective of not increasing is also valid. Having studied such an excellent treatise, especially after learning such a profound text, we should try to put these teachings into practice in all our actions. Before, we had never studied such excellent teachings, and many of our behaviors were not very appropriate. So this time, we should study and practice genuinely. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Bandara Bandara